Hey you guys, welcome back to my garden. So I am going to start working on this front flower bed. Finally getting to it. It's just a one-woman show. I don't have any help from my husband on this particular project, but when we do the bigger section of the garden, which I think I have him on board, I will definitely be using his assistance in that because it's going to be a quite large overhaul. But let me tell you about what we've got going on back here. So for anyone who has not been following along and doesn't already know my plan, this is what we're doing. We're doing a row of Bobo hydrangeas across the front of the porch area. This says they're supposed to get 2.5 to 3 foot tall and 3 to 4 foot wide. However, they do get taller than that. In our area, I'm looking at probably more like 4 foot tall. And they need full sun to part shade. These bloom in the summer and have color throughout the fall, just like the other panicle hydrangeas. So this is for zones 3 through 8. Here are some of the blooms on the Bobo hydrangea. These are all really fresh and nice. This came from the garden center like this, so super happy to have such nice fresh blooms this late in the season. And they are reblooming, so I'll be able to get blooms like this next year just the same. These hydrangeas are going to be beautiful in front of my double pink knockout roses that I already have planted along the line here, and they'll give me a more rounded habit where these grow tall and more vase shaped. And then I have the Perfecto Mundo double pink reblooming azaleas by Proven Winners. These get 2 to 3 foot tall and wide. These are evergreen and they are going to be in the front of my border, so they'll be a little bit shorter than the Bobo hydrangeas and give me evergreen interest. This is the color of pink that you'll actually have on the azaleas. The front of the card is super faded from the sun. But anyways, I've got 4 of these to go in the bed and then 3 of the hydrangeas. So that's the plan for what I'm actually putting in the bed. Talk how we're gonna actually do this. I am gonna dig around the edge of the flower bed that I already have existing and try to get out some of that grass right there. And then I'm going to lay my weed barrier over the grass, but I didn't want to have to put weed barrier up into the mulched flower bed area that I already have existing. That's why I'm going to just dig kind of like a line of where the grass is. And so that way when I lay my weed barrier up to the flower bed, I don't have any grass that starts like growing from where the flower bed is and where the weed barrier is, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to put my compost on top of the weed barrier because my weed barrier is there only to keep all of this grass from growing up into the flower bed. The compost will allow me to still be able to plant annuals and things in that. And as I plant things, I will cut that weed barrier back and be able to get into the dirt and the soil better. And eventually this weed barrier is going to start looking like cottage cheese and I'll start pulling chunks of that out, but that'll be a year or 2 down the road once all of that grass is completely dead, and then I won't have the weed barrier there. So this is the easiest way for me to do it without doing back-breaking labor. And I think this will be okay because I want to build this up a little bit anyways, and then I'm going to line it all with the stones. But then once I get that, I will put my Bobo hydrangeas in the ground. I'll put the azaleas in the ground, and that's all that I'm going to put in the ground for now. But I want to keep it pretty simple and a little less wild up here by the house since I do have so much going on in the cottage garden. So really, I think the only other planting that I'm gonna do would maybe be some annuals towards the front, but we'll see. So for now, I'm going to start working on digging out a little bit of this grass, like I said, put my weed barrier, put my compost, and then start lining this bed with rocks and put the shrubs in the ground. So this is just one side, and then I'm gonna have to go and do the other side. So this will be a multi-day project, but I'm gonna do as much as I can right now while the baby's napping. So let's get going. so you can see I don't have enough compost to completely cover this flower bed and get it exactly how I want it to be. However, we will be buying a truckload of compost whenever we do this other flower bed, and so I will use some of that to finish this. This gets me enough to where I can get the shrubs I purchased in the ground so they don't have to sit out anymore. So I filled in as much as I could with what I have. I have one more bag that I'm going to use as I'm planting, but I want to use my tape measure and I want to make sure that I'm spacing everything exactly how it needs to be, so that way when things grow in and mature, they don't swallow each other. I want to make sure that they are evenly spaced and have that extra room. So I'm going to go measure and place all the plants, then hopefully start getting them in the ground. All right guys, I've been measuring. I think I've got it figured out. I wanted to make sure that I had the knockout roses and the Bobo hydrangeas 4 foot apart. So on center, 4 foot apart, because the knockout roses can get 4 foot wide. The Bobo hydrangeas can get 4 foot wide. So from center of the knockout rose to center of the Bobo hydrangea, I have them spaced 4 foot apart. That way they just touch once they mature and are full grown. And then I've got my azaleas in the front. They get 3 foot wide at maturity. So I've got the Bobo hydrangeas and the azaleas 3.5 feet apart from the center of the Bobo hydrangea to the center of the azalea. And so those will just barely touch once they grow to maturity. And I think that'll keep everything with plenty of space and they can all breathe and have enough air circulation. Along this curve right here, this last azalea is further away from this Bobo hydrangea, but it's because it's following the curve. But I'm gonna have this peony that I'm gonna be moving out, and then that'll kind of follow that curve and fill in that void. So that's the plan there. I might get another azalea to continue a little bit this direction right over here. That way I have one that goes beyond the house, so things aren't like just chopped off at the house. I think that'll help with the flow. I'm also considering getting a loropetalum for the side of the house, maybe 2 or 3 to kind of go around this curve. I think I'm gonna maybe do the purple daydream, or maybe I'll do something smaller and do the purple pixie by Southern Living, and let that be like the front of the border, and then have something bigger behind it. The purple daydream gets, I think, like 4 foot tall, but all I have on this corner is this climbing rose, so I think it would be pretty to have something bigger there, and then the climbing rose comes up behind it. So either way, I think I want to have some of that purple foliage color here. I love the Chinese variegated fringe flower, but I think for this space and the color palette that I have, I think that might be too busy for the corner of the house. As much as I love it and I think it's going to be spectacular and gorgeous over in the cottage garden, I think I want more of the deep solid purple over here on the corner, and that would be an evergreen. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. But for now, let's get these in the ground. We'll sit on it for a little bit and see where we go from there. I literally just planted all 3 of those Bobo hydrangeas and my camera was not running. Oops, they're in the ground. Ta-da! Oh my goodness. All right, well, you can see them here. All 3 in the ground. It actually ended up that these 2 are probably 4 inches further apart than these 2. I dug my holes twice as wide as the hydrangeas, right? And so when I set them in the ground and started filling them in, they just got shifted one way or the other. And so they're not exact, but that's okay. This one will probably get bigger than the other ones anyways, because it's going to get more sun than the other ones. So maybe it'll all work itself out. We're just going to go with it. Now I need to get my azaleas in the ground, and this side of the flower bed will be complete-ish as far as the planting of the shrubs go. Again, I need to bring in more compost. Obviously, I'll need to mulch. I need to put my rocks out, so still a lot to do, but we're getting there. And maybe this time I'll make sure my camera's running so you can see the process of planting these azaleas. I just wore a blister in my hand. This is gonna put a kink in things this weekend.